On today's episode, I will be giving my feedback on the iPhone SE 2020. Is it as good as Apple have made us to believe? We're going to find out. Hi, I'm Greg, and this is my review channel. Hope you are all well during the lockdown. We are still on lockdown, although they are making it a little bit less, but we still are having to keep ourselves busy at home. So, iPhone SE 2020, is it any good? Well, I'm using the iPhone SE 2020 at the moment to record this video. I am using a Sennheiser memory mic for the sound, but I will blend it with the original sound off the phone so you can kind of hear a combination of the two. So yes, is it any good? In a word, yes. I think it is a very, very good phone for how much it costs, without a doubt. Why on earth anyone would want to spend more than double on an iPhone Pro 11? I really don't know. Okay, I am saying that, and I have a phone that is also worth a lot more money than this. But for, I reckon, 90% of the population, this will be all you ever need. It's actually encouraged me to get back into my apps, because I've always got an iPhone in my pocket, which gives you a much wider range of apps that I'm interested in on than Android. So I bought some more music making apps, which is helping me with other projects. There are some companies like Insta360, which is what I'm using now to film this video. Their app for this, the iPhone compared to the Android, gives you more functionality. So there does seem still, for certainly creative things, to be a bias towards Apple iOS rather than Android. But the battery life on it is pretty decent. The only thing at the moment is I'm sure it has lemming tendencies, because this thing, although it's shiny and slippery and I haven't bothered to put a case in it, it just seems to want to throw itself on the floor. You put it on anything that's slightly slippy and it will fall to the floor. So that's a little bit frustrating. And what I didn't realize is that this is a Product Red, and Product Red are a charity, and I believe 100% of the money that these sell for goes to that charity, which I really hope is the case, because it would be nice if Apple actually gave back to the community. So who knows? Write in the comments beneath. So we're going to jump straight into it and start comparing the video and photo quality. And I'm going to go through and give a bit of an explanation as to what each one's about, what I think the difference is, and what I like, and what I dislike. So to begin with, we're going to start with the iPhone SE. Oh, that wasn't very good. Right, come on, forward. And behind me, behind. Okay, stop. Drop it. Insta360 One R on. Just holding it with my hand, trying to avoid the microphones. No wind noise reduction, so it probably will be noisier than the iPhone SE. Oh, good catch. Just seeing how we get on with this, and then we'll do the P30 Pro. Come on, drop it. Gino behind. Come on. Okay, now we're recording with the P30 Pro 4K 30 frames per second auto, not using the optical zoom or the wide. Okay, and go, go, go. Yeah, good catch. Why don't you go in the water? So you've all had a watch of them and a listen, so let's kind of quickly look at the iPhone SE. The image stabilization, considering I'm holding it with my hand, is pretty decent. Decent colors. It's sharp for a relatively moving object. The pan wasn't too bad. Again, grass looks a little overexposed, but it's, I'd be quite happy with using that. and everything else. Let's have a quick little look at what she's like close up. So yeah, that's just filmed at 4K, 30 frames per second. That is, I'd be happy to use that, although I'd probably want to do a little bit of color correction post. Moving on to the P30 Pro, I thought the image stabilization wasn't as good as the iPhone SE. However, I do think that this is a more accurate representation of the environment I was in. It's sharp, it's clear, and it definitely looks like what my eyes were seeing. The audio was better, there was less wind noise, and I thought it actually just sounded a lot more high definition. So I would definitely choose the microphone on this. It's sharp. It is definitely a good camera to use for video stuff, although I probably would use it on a Osmo Mobile 2 if I wanted it vibration free. Moving on to the One R 4K. This image stabilization offered by Insta360 is amazing. It's so smooth. The audio was noisy for wind noise, but there are other settings, but I just wanted to keep it on its absolute minimum. The color on this is just really, really saturated, but in a typical action camera kind of way. But I like it. I think it looks nice. The image stabilization, as I've said, is the best. And definitely off the bat, that is very usable without any color correction or white balancing or stuff like that. It's just the look that you want. Here you can see a direct comparison between the three, and you'll notice that probably the least colorful and least saturated is the P30 Pro. But what do you think? Which do you like the best? Which is the one that you'd spend your money on? But remember, the One R 4K is a camera that is £450. So that is slightly more expensive than the iPhone SE, and the P30 Pro was £1,000 phone when it first came out. So which do you think is better? Moving on to the selfie camera, this is a picture of yours truly, and you'll see first of all that the iPhone is quite overexposed. My face and the details of my beard and sunglasses is pretty good, but the sky is very much washed out. The P30 Pro looks actually processed, but it isn't. The sky is a nice tinge of blue. The detailing of my face and the contrast is very, very good. And then moving on to the One R 4K, it is the least exposed shot out of the three, but I think there's the sky itself is probably the truest to the color that it was. But as you can see, there are shadows in the face. But I think all three did a reasonably good job on this. My favorite is the P30 Pro. And then moving on to the SE, again, has shown that slightly brown look to my skin. The P30 Pro is probably the most truest, again, to the colors that were there. Although these were held at similar distance away from my face, the P30 Pro looks to have slightly more depth. And then the One R 4K, considering it's not really a selfie camera, it did a pretty decent job, although it is probably the most washed out of the three. But I think the P30 Pro, again, is the camera that has done the best job. So now moving on to the stills, and you've got a slight brown tinge with the iPhone SE. Detailing is good. The P30 Pro, again, the white balance seems to be the most right. The colors are almost a little bland in comparison to, say, the iPhone SE, but I think it has the truest representation. And then the One R 4K is probably a little underexposed from this shot, but the blue sky looks nice. The green on the grass looks okay. Out of those three, which do I like the best? Probably the iPhone SE. Coming to these three pictures, the One R compares a bit better to the previous photo it took. The P30 Pro probably has the most detail and is truest to life. The iPhone SE, again, looks a little brown. I would prefer to use the P30 Pro. It could be the cloud maybe, but the iPhone SE looks a little underexposed. The P30 Pro has a wider field of view compared to the iPhone SE. and the One R 4K obviously has a longer depth, but the grass is really nice. My favorite probably in that is the One R 4K. So now moving to nighttime photography. Here the iPhone SE does a reasonable job. White of the building at the top looks a bit brown. Little noise, reasonable definition. The P30 Pro by far though looks considerably better. You have a lot less noise, the sky is truer. The One R 4K, bless it, it's tried its best, but it ain't that great. But using the Color Plus mode on it, it did improve things a bit, but again, it's just massively overexposed the shot. Out of those, my favorite is the P30 Pro. Coming to the next shot with Juno again, you've got that similar brown look to the iPhone SE. P30 Pro looks nicer, the white balance looks spot on. One R 4K looks a little bit blurry. Now, a close one, close-ish. It's as close as I was actually going to get because I don't like spiders. But the iPhone SE did a pretty reasonable job taking a picture through the glass. You can obviously make out that that's a spider and definitely not one I want to go anywhere near. The P30 Pro's picture looks great though. It looks really, really nice. Definitely, that is a good photo. One R 4K, it was all right, but it's blurry, but it's not really a camera for those kind of images. Which do you like the most? Then coming to a picture of the moon, iPhone SE did a good job of this. Not much noise in the sky. The moon is, you've got a nice ring around it. It looks reasonably clear. The P30 Pro, the sky looked more genuine to the color that it was, but I think the definition of the moon in the iPhone SE actually looks better, and the One R 4K, it is pretty useless. So moving on to another nighttime shot, but this time taken with flashes. iPhone SE, massively overexposed, and Juno has demon dog eyes. A P30 Pro, her eyes look normal and it doesn't seem quite as overexposed with the flash. And the One R 4K doesn't have a flash, and that's about as best as I was going to get. You could use red eye removal in Photoshop Express for the iPhone SE, but my favorite is by far the P30 Pro. You've got good detailing on the concrete. You've still got that brown tinge. The color representation on the P30 Pro is by far the best, and the One R isn't too bad, but when you use the Color Plus like so, it really does bring it out, and that is quite remarkable. So do you need anything more than this? No, as you saw from the images, yes, there are differences. I think if you want a phone and a camera that's combined, that operates more like a DSLR, then yes, get something like a P30 Pro, which gives you the optical zoom, gives you better nighttime video photography, and does have a much longer lasting battery life, and it does charge a lot faster than that. But that's double the money, and how many of you out there are really going to really want that extra photography aspect? I don't know. Me, it's nice to have, but I would be quite happy just using the iPhone SE as a, as a do-it-all phone. Yes, is it as good as the Insta360 One R? No, in some aspects, as you would have seen in my in the video. But the Insta360 One R is the same price as this, and this, again, it depends what you want. So this gives you everything that I believe you'll ever need from an iOS device. I'm now thinking I wish I'd got the 128 gig rather than 64. I also like the fact that it connects to Apple Play, so I can just use the BBC Sounds app, for example, to listen to the radio, which is then connected to my hi-fi. So yes, I still have a hi-fi. I'm old school, as they say. So it gets a thumbs up from me. It does have its failings, but it's a phone that's less than £500, which in this day and age is cheap. Who'd have thought that? Get the red one, just because obviously it benefits a good cause more than just Apple's pockets, and get the 128 gig one because I think you'll actually need it. And yeah, save some money and don't buy the iPhone Pro 11 because there's no need to. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Write in the comments in beneath what you think. Smash that subscribe button, bell, whatever, and let me know your thoughts. Am I wrong? Show me what I'm missing out on the iPhone 11 Pro, because at the moment, I don't see a great deal on what I'm missing. Look after yourself, and I will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye.